Hello, welcome back to Glad Confused. And I recently watched the movie Crisis on Infinite Earths Part One. It is a new DC animated movie for their new animated movie universe that started off with Superman, Man of Tomorrow. I believe it's called the Tomorrowverse. I think that's what it's been coined, the Tomorrowverse, because of that. Where do I start on this one? Just things I liked about this was like definitely the inclusions of like the question. I thought that was cool. Not much. There's a lot of stuff I thought were kind of just meh. I didn't always, there wasn't really much of anything that I liked specifically. Like there was definitely cool to see other characters in there when they had the whole character room. That was probably the coolest thing. The thing I liked the most was trying to see all the characters that I could, like seeing like Aqualad or Tempest, whichever variant he was at that time, trying to figure out which Earth they belong to, stuff like that. One of the things that I thought was weird was how they told. It was weird and interesting how they told this part, because this part was about the Flash, and this is told from the story of the Flash, and a lot of this is them gelling a lot of their movies together, gelling these characters together with these little odd time skipping flashbacks in which you don't know when exactly the time is skipping to, and you got to kind of figure it out yourself. But it is giving you information that is either crucial to how like teams form, or how the universe, or how this universe acts and operates, how some characters interact and stuff, and just some of the interesting characters. It is definitely interesting to some degree as to how some of the stuff comes about. It's definitely interesting to see how they did it. They definitely told it in an interesting way. I will give them that. I don't know if I would have told it in this way. A lot of this is mainly, like I said before, just tying in stuff, kind of just showing stuff that we're missing from like all the movies. We're not seeing all the connections. We're not get the audience at this point hasn't been given everything in order to either like feel like this universe is fully fleshed out, somewhat being lived in, because we've only gotten few instances of stuff like that, like Long Halloween, Man of Tomorrow, Justice Society, World War II. And that was even taking in another Earth, but it had mainly this character, it had this Flash in there. The Green Lantern movie that had John Stewart essentially being had Kyle Rayner's story being John Stewart driven, and Hal Jordan being poorly portrayed. Although those all movies are part of this universe, but they were very poorly connected or integrated together and never felt connected. This is kind of this movie. This movie was basically connecting all those in a very weird, interesting fashion where Flash is essentially time skipping. His memory is time skipping until it gets to about his wedding. The problem is that doesn't happen until maybe about the 45 minutes or hour mark, which is about halfway, which the 45 minutes is about halfway. So hour, I think, might be when it stops doing that. But it not only goes like in between the past, which up until this point, but it also goes in the future, like, and you'll find out later. And I'll explain more about that later. It's very interesting and weird how exactly this is all done. And I don't know if I like it, but also this universe's adaptation of Crisis on Infinite Earths, and there's some stuff I do like. I do like that they did put in the Charlton comic book characters as their own universe. They definitely did put in. I wish the Captain Marvel and the other people of the Shazam family or Captain Marvel family were integrated into this, but they're not, as far as I could tell. And if they were given basically back road cameo roles instead of outright upfront sort of stuff. Psycho Pirate is there, but it's unknown as to what he plays, other than them just saying, "Oh yeah, we got Psycho Pirate here. Remember him from the comics, from the comic book run of Crisis on Infinite Earths? Yeah, he's here. Don't worry about it. We got you fans." It's kind of what that all entailed. It's kind of what it felt like. Maybe he'll be utilized later in parts 2 and 3, but I don't know. This was a very lackluster film, and it felt like you were only getting a third of this. It only felt like you were really getting a third of a film. Like it didn't feel like, oh yeah, you're getting. It's not like Star Wars where or like the original trilogy where you got a whole film, but it was part of a trilogy. No, this is just part one, and literally part one. Yeah, don't expect to get like, oh yeah, this is you feel like a full film has just gone on. No, it feels like you only got part one of you only got one part of a film. You only got a third of the way through the film, and the other 2/3 doesn't come out later. That's kind of what it felt like. I got some other grievances. They do race change characters just out of the wild for no apparent reason. The only one I can think of that they actually had a reason for it was Wally West, and that's because they had no reason for changing the race of Iris West in the Justice Society World War II film. And since that's all connected, they obviously, and Iris West is from that universe is in here, they changed the race of Wally West because they're related. To some degree makes sense. I just don't like that. It's still something that lingered from that movie over into this one, and I still don't like it. It really shouldn't matter, but also if it must matter to some degree because they did change it from the source material. So those things kind of bug me. They also changed the race of Professor Ibo, and they also made him a good guy. And to some degree, it wasn't necessary to make Ibo a good guy, but with the way they implemented Amazo, it makes sense and probably explains a lot easier because they really didn't set up any of this well. That's basically the premise I'm getting here. The universe wasn't set up well, and it seems like they're trying to clean up quick because they want to do something else. That's kind of how this all feels. And it seems like they're just trying to cap it off and hurry it up. But back to the race baiting changes. They also did the same thing with the Martian Manhunter. His detective alias John Jones is now a black guy. So it's also another case where it's like, well, you changed it. Why'd you change it? Like it was perfectly fine as it was. Why'd you change it? And yeah, I don't know. It's something that bugs me because it's stuff that shouldn't happen. And if it happened in the other way, there'd be an uproar. So I'm just kind of like trying to figure out why it only happens this way. I know probably woke ideology to some degree, but hey, whatever. Now the way they do this in the movie is like in the comic book, Flash dies from obviously trying to stop the Anti-Monitor from destroying all the planets. And he does destroy the device that's helping the Anti-Monitor destroy all the planets without actually having to go there in person, if I'm not mistaken. And it's been a while since I read the comic book, but essentially Flash dies. But that seems to be how far they've gotten, is they're just focusing on the Flash until his death. And he does technically die, but it doesn't die running at the speed of past the speed of light and going as fast as he can to try to stop this from the antimatter, well, I guess what they call the antimatter wave from happening. What he does is he dies of old age in this one because he freezes time so him and Iris can live together and die old together, live out their lives in like the matter of a second. And one, it's very selfish. However, he is told by Pariah to go, he is kind of suggested by Pariah to go do this. So maybe if this is like part of Pariah's penance of like, this guy's going to die anyway. So maybe push him in the direction to like have the happiest life he can until he dies. Maybe that's where that was going with. But if that was the case, they did a poor job of like showing it. But yeah, Flash takes Iris and essentially freezes time around him. And I don't know how you're not supposed to think about it that much because obviously because they still got to eat, they still got to drink. Obviously got to still, do all that, but do everything like life. But they're living in the split second, like they're living in a matter of split seconds. And they can move at fast speeds, but it doesn't really explicitly say whether or not that everything else, like what else around them, can also move at those fast paces. Like if it's just what they, if they gotta physically touch something in order to make it go fast, like because they use microwaves, they use fridges. I don't know exactly what goes on and how everything works, but apparently things should. It's not really very well explained, and Supergirl is Harbinger, which I don't know why that's the case, but she is, and I'm thinking that since she's probably going to die in part 2, because that seems to be the way they're going about this, is she'll die in part 2, and then the worlds will collide and form one Earth in part 3, then giving way to the new animated movie universe that they're going to create from that. And that's my speculation on that. And I'm assuming that's how that'll happen. But it is not I don't think this is very meh. This isn't good. This isn't bad. It's very meh. And you get that a lot from this. Yeah, I think they could have done a lot better with this. This is supposed to be a very big event, and the way they did it, the way they implemented it, to some degree, I get it, because they needed to get everything together because they hadn't done that before. But the way they implemented everything, not that good. Yeah, I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 10. It possibly could be made up. Part 2 and 3 could be spectacular. I don't know, but like I said before, this part is completely dependent on the next 2 parts. So if those do good, the ranking of this part might change, but it probably won't. If it's going to follow the same trend. I like the comic book. I probably need to reread it at some point, but I probably need to reread it just to be prepared for like the part 2 and 3. But I don't think this has done it justice, and I don't think these movies will. But I will be happy to be wrong on this if these are done well. But I'm not holding out for it at all. So, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you next time on Galactic Reviews.